Hey there, pinball fans. Butch Peel with Jersey Jack Pinball. We get a lot of calls and emails from customers concerned about the information displayed on their game's test report at PowerUp. I thought I'd make a quick video to explain the test report a little bit, its purpose, how to address some of the items that are brought up in the test report, and most importantly, how to clear it so that you're not reminded of these things every time you power up your game. So if you're ready, let's get going. So here's the slightly unnerving message that you get put on your screen when the game boots up, and there's a self-test report that the game wants you to check out. So you do as it says, you open the coin door, press the black enter button, press it again, and there's your test report. It's a very simple test report showing up on this game. A single switch, the Monkey Magnet Sense, is showing as stuck open, and it's a dedicated switch. So what does this mean? And why is the game telling me this? I just turned it on because I want to play some pinball. Well, think about it. Switches are our connection to the game. Switches tell everything in the game what to do. Switches are what keep our score. Switches are what tell what lights to go on, whether a pop bumper should kick, a flipper should kick, a slingshot could kick, whether we made a ramp shot or not. All those sorts of things. If the switches in the game are not working properly, then the game itself is no fun, because there's nothing worse in this world than making a shot and not getting credit for it because the switch didn't register. So since switches are so critical to gameplay, the game monitors its switches all of the time. And how does it know when a switch is working properly? It sees it activated from time to time during gameplay or in a test mode or something like that. How does it know if it's not working? Well, it doesn't, right? I mean, it only is going to know if it's working if it sees it active. Like this rollover switch right here. If the game says, I have not seen the Scarecrow rollover activated in quite a few games now, it might start to wonder whether that switch is actually working or not. So it brings it to your attention that there might be a problem with it by putting it in the test report. So the game is basically asking you, take a look at this switch right here. I haven't seen it work in a while. Tell me for sure that it is working. Show me that it's working. Activate it a couple of times for me so that I know, and I'll stop bothering you about it. Now, some switches are going to be more accessible than others. That is, they're more likely to be hit by a ball during gameplay than others. This one that I chose for my first example here, this rollover, is going to be one that's going to get hit a lot because the ball rolls around the playfield and accidentally hits that one quite often. However, you go up behind the doors here where the vertical up kicker is back there, that switch is going to be harder to hit. You have to break the doors down before you can get the ball in there and trigger that switch. Same thing with this spinning house. The made the loop for the spinning house switch here is going to be hit much less frequently than one of the rollovers on the main playfield. So the vast majority of the time a switch will end up in your test report simply because it's a difficult switch to hit on the playfield and it hasn't been triggered in quite a few balls played. So if that is indeed the case, then all you'll need to do is go from the test report screen into one of your switch test modes, either dedicated or matrix switches, and activate that switch a couple of times by hand, or more importantly, make sure the ball will trigger that switch. So the quickest way to get to those switch test modes, either matrix switches or dedicated switches, is to just hit the enter button from the test report page. Whatever's listed first in the test report will automatically go to that screen to test and clear that message by just hitting the enter button. In this case, you see the Monkey Magnet Sense switch. Its box is red, so that's why it was in the test report. The Monkey Magnet Sense in the Wizard of Oz is just one of a few different dedicated switches that can end up in your test report. Flipper end of stroke switches can end up there. That's the switch that activates whenever the flippers reach their end of their stroke. Another possibility is the plumb bob tilt in the bottom of the cabinet that rocks back and forth when you're shaking the game. Other dedicated switches like your flipper cabinet switches and the start button for the game are not likely to ever end up in a test report because you're going to recognize those aren't working immediately when they quit and you're going to get them fixed right away. You won't need a test report to tell you that. So if you see dedicated switches in your test report, you're going to need to go to this screen here, find the switch itself and activate it a few times by hand to clear the message from the test report. So what about matrix switches? If the test report were telling me that the two Munchkinland playfield switches, these loop switches, the Munchkinland loop upper and lower, were questionable, then they would have red boxes here and here, and these two switches would be the ones that I would be looking for to try and clear. Now I can easily hit the lower switch with my finger here and make sure that it works. And you see it go green up there. However, the upper switch is a little bit more difficult to get to. It's under a plastic there. And like I said earlier, it's more important that the ball be able to activate these. So I'm going to trigger this a couple of times just by rolling the ball around here a couple of times. And you see the switches activate when the ball hit them. That would clear them. They would not be red any longer. Or, alternatively, during a game, if I were to shoot the ball up here and it end up on this play field, and I made that shot a couple of times and it activated both of those switches during gameplay, it would clear those two red boxes and clear those switches from the test report also. It's important to note that a switch can be either stuck open or stuck closed in the test report, so it'll tell you which one it is in the test report. If a switch is stuck closed, it'll come up on the screen here as a green box, meaning it's always activated. If it's stuck open and hasn't been able to close or activate, then it will be a red box. And if the switch is stuck closed, you'll need to take a closer look at it wherever it happens to be, above or below the playfield. Find out what's keeping it from working properly, and probably make a couple of adjustments to it and make it where the switch works like it was intended to. I'll cover switch troubleshooting, adjustment, and those sorts of things in more detail in another video. The game also continuously monitors its complex devices inside the game. So the test report can also bring to your attention any potential issues that the software sees with some of those devices. And that makes sense because devices use switches as an integral part of how they operate. The list of devices available in any game can be brought up through the test menu. Go into device tests and then you'll see all the list of the devices within that game. To kind of illustrate what a device error looks like in your test report, I've deliberately removed the power connector from one of the trough opto boards. This creates an immediate trough error. And that error, as you can tell, goes to the top of the list immediately. Because a trough error is a very big deal. The game cannot function without all of the switches in the trough working properly. So that basically trumps all of the other things in the test report list. And as before, the game will take me directly to the trough device test by hitting the enter button. And once I get here, I can see that all of the switches are active at one time, which led to the error, which is basically caused by me pulling the power off of one of those opto boards. When I find the problem and replace that connector on the opto board on the trough, all of the switches return to their normal, correct states. That is, there are no balls in the trough, so none of them should be active. And of course, the ball trough error is removed from the test report. The last thing I want to mention is how useful the game manuals can be in visualizing, identifying, and locating the switches and devices inside your game. I'll use the latest manual, the Willy Wonka manual, to show you what I mean. Matrixed switches are shown in the wiring table at the end of section C in the manual. The switches are all hyperlinked to above and below playfield switch illustrations also in section C. The switch numbers shown in blue in each of these squares will match the numbers shown in your test report for the switches. So if you're looking for switch 17, the right ramp enter switch here, all you have to do is click it and the hyperlink will automatically take you to the above playfield view of the Wonka playfield and show you where that switch is located. Accompanying each playfield illustration is a table showing the switch's function, its type, its part number, and if it's part of an assembly, the assembly's part number. The last column has hyperlinks to the assembly drawings themselves for switches that are part of an assembly. Switch 17 is indeed part of an assembly, the 5281, so I can click on the page hyperlink here, C42, takes me directly to the assembly drawing. I can see what the switch looks like and how it fits into the overall assembly. And there is a color convention for all the switches in these illustrations. Blue for micro switches, ramps and things like that, rollovers, red for targets, which are all over the playfield, stuff to shoot at, violet for leaf switches, like our slingshots, pop bumpers, things like that, and green for optos, along with a little yellow-green beam going between the transmit and receive so you can kind of see what trips them. Likewise under the playfield, blue with micro switches, rollovers all over here, red for targets, again sprinkled all over the playfield, violet for our leaf switches, the slings again, and green for the optos, several of which under this playfield. And dedicated switches are handled pretty much in the same manner. They have their own wiring table filled with hyperlinks. So if you're looking for one of those end of stroke switches, say switch number 4 here, the upper right flipper end of stroke, just click on the hyperlink. Takes you directly to above and below playfield illustrations showing locations of all of the dedicated switches. So you can see above and below the playfield where that dedicated switch is. The accompanying table lists the dedicated switches by switch number. So there's switch 4. You see it's an end of stroke. It's part number. It's part of assembly 510114. And there's a hyperlink to page C10 with an assembly drawing. So click that hyperlink and you go right to the assembly drawing. You can see where the switch is and how it fits into the overall assembly. Well, hopefully this video has helped take a little bit of the apprehension, a little bit of the mystery out of the JJP test report for you all. It's kind of like the government. It really is here to help you. Think of your test report as a learning opportunity, a way to get into your game, figure out how things work a little better, and keep the game working like it was intended to and like it was designed. Fun. I think I'm going to go play a game myself right now. I'll catch up with you guys next time. Take care.